All right, Chad, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's start this conversation about you. So I want to know what's your journey and how did you get where you are today?
Oh man, that is a chaotic journey. So I started. We want like the full backstory, like when I was a young boy in the woods. So I grew up. I grew up in Montana in a rural area, which is disconnected from pretty much the rest of the world. And music was my outlet kind of thing. And then for some reason my family allowed me to rip apart electronics in the house. So at an early age, I think probably around 6 and 7, I started to, anytime that something was broken, just kind of rip it apart. And so these dual things were kind of taking place as I was growing up in this rural area between technology and music ended up kind of winning out. And then in high school, I started to fly around the country as a professional musician. And then not long after that, I moved to LA. And then over the years, as I was touring and traveling, I realized that music is one of the least collaborative type of things that you can do over the internet. So I developed a way to do it using VR to where we can all go into a virtual studio and then bring our actual instruments in and not have to live on planes and stuff like that if we don't want to. And in developing this, I launched this company called Mellow, and that's what that is. And I had to solve a latency issue for the music because music is just such a refined timing type of thing. So as I was developing the solution for that, I created an AI system that handles latency and audio and found that actually had more applications in telecommunications and defense and things like that. So launched simultaneously another company called ShadowGen. And now we're in the process of launching both companies. I'm still doing the music element, but now things are exceptionally chaotic. So in the mix in there somewhere, I went to school for mass media and communications, finishing up a master's in global technology. And then I used to be an extra on TV shows to pay bills when I first moved to LA.
Wow, actually that's a lot. So
Yeah.
I want to know.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I just give a whole life story. And then when I was 7 years
And
old.
I think so far, what interests me the most is how did you transition from a music person into AI? This is a big jump, man.
Yeah, okay, so that the jump for me, it doesn't feel like a big jump because I don't see AI. I think, well, it's not a problem, but I don't see AI as this complicated system, despite the fact it really is. I see AI as, we'll be referencing AI as what operating systems were for PCs when they came out. So down the road, AI will be the replacement for Windows or Mac. So I just saw it as a tool that popped up that would solve the situations. Also, one of the weird things is that when I was a kid, since I was obsessed with inventors and all of that, you're familiar with Morse code. And so Samuel Morse created Morse code, which is blips and beeps, but it was dependent upon somebody at the other end translating it and writing it down and all of that. And I just see AI as sort of a translation tool that kind of just keeps expanding on what the translations are in relation to humanity. I mean, technically it was a couple years ago, but again, the application that I was working on was for music. And then it was sometime last year that my business partner was like, well, does this system work for other applications? And I was like, well, yeah, it works in telecommunications, RF, satellite, all these different things. But my business partner, who's brilliant, she's always like, I don't want you to data dump on me the stuff you're working on because we have to like compartmentalize per section. But it just so happened that something she'd come across. She's like, well, will our system solve these issues? I'm like, yeah, it'd solve all these issues. So that kind of like shot it into the stratosphere of priority. And then we did the proof of concept and achieved that 95% bandwidth reduction. And then it just kind of has snowballed.
Yeah. And what was the turning point and you feel like, okay, I'm going to all in on this. I'm going to quit music and just do AI?
Well, here's what's funny is I personally, and this is probably from like more of an artist perspective, is that I don't see any of it as being separate. It's all the same thing to me. Because, like I'm a fan of, the old innovators and things like that. Howard Hughes making movies, flying planes, building planes, or, Da Vinci, right? Painting, making war weapons. Like To me, it's just different brushes on the same canvas. So the stuff that I want to make and have thought about making for my whole life is finally possible through AI. So I never saw it as a complicated system, even though it definitely is. I saw it more as like a tool that finally will allow me to build out the stuff that I've been working on since I was a kid. And so it never felt like a giant jump for me. It was just kind of this will fit here, you know?
What did you study in college? What was the major?
So mass media arts and communications. And then my master's is in global technology.
Oh, I wonder like how, you become knowledgeable enough to be able to, do AI stuff. So are you like mostly self-taught or you learn most of your skills from school?
Self-taught. The other thing too is that I learned like in the music industry, if you want to do stuff that actually matters and is legit, you cannot be a master of every single aspect of what you're trying to build.
Agreed.
So I view myself more as like an architect where I can see the building and I have the building plans. But for me to go out there and pour the cement and refine the metals and all of that, I'm never going to achieve anything I'm trying to achieve. So I'm very comfortable with designing the concepts, breaking it down, and then handing it over to the team to build it out. And that's I learned that from music, because if they needed a guitarist to come in and write this thing and all that, I was the guy. But I'm not going to show up and hammer it out on the keyboard because, I suck at that.
Got it. And so far, what is the biggest obstacle in your journey?
People. People are always the biggest obstacle.
Agree.
One of the hardest things for me is throttling how much information to let people. So it's this constant battle between here's what I've built, here's what I'm working on, and here's what it can do. If I talk to the wrong group, they think it's ridiculous and it'll never be possible. If I talk to a different group, it's too much too soon. So a lot of it for me is just how much do I dangle in front of the different groups and investors to not scare them, but enough to where they jump in. And honestly, navigating just how many absolute poser idiots there are in the game, pretending to be VCs so that they get girls and can get into clubs and everything else. That's been a nightmare, is just navigating that. I will say in the AI world, and since we do deal with a lot of like VC companies and military stuff like that, it is a lot more straightforward. But it is amazing how many just kind of sleazeball people try to jump in and, like, oh, I got some stuff for you. And then it takes you 3-4 months to figure out that they were just full of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because AI has been, the most like talked, trendy topic out there. Like people think if they can get into AI, then they have good future. They have like high pay. But is that a misconception? Like people think that way?
Yeah, I think the problem is it's with every jump in technology, you have people that are opportunistic about it. And they think that so I saw this coming out, last year, a couple years ago, when everybody was like, we have an AI calendar assistant. We have an AI planner. And I was like, I didn't tell these people that because I didn't want to crush them. But I was like, do you genuinely believe that Google won't implement all of these systems for their customers for free? That they won't put an AI calendar system, an AI email organizer for free? Your company is based upon what they're going to give everyone for free. That's dangerous. And what they all did is that AI is also one of the most easily duplicated things that we've ever made. Like it's a copy and, this is layman's term, it's a copy and paste system. So one group's like, we made an AI calendar. Another group can copy and paste that into theirs and go, we made an AI calendar that talks to you. It's not like a safe bet unless you have a specific application for it that solves a specific problem. So a lot of people did the gold rush thing, right? Where they're like, there's gold, let's just go start digging. I'm more interested in selling the tools to the people who have no idea what they're doing and digging.
Yeah, and talk about this. I want to know, so far, what is your biggest motivation in doing what you do now?
Biggest motivation now is that I can see that all the things that I've been working on since I was a kid are now possible. Stuff that was considered science fiction, impossible deep tech is now very applicable. And even when I was talking with DARPA a few weeks ago about some of these projects, and again, talking about testing the waters of not saying too much or too little, I was able to kind of get open with them about some of the applications that I want to do. And they were like, yes, we're that's where we're at. Like, we're interested in this. So I feel like a kid in a candy store that for the first time, all of my ideas are not insane and they do make sense and they do have a place. And that keeps me going. So I'm like, if I can launch section A that gets me to B, C, D, all the way to my end goal, which is going to take me my lifetime to get there. And even if I get there, I have no idea if I can solve what I'm trying to solve. So constant challenges. I love that.
That's so cool, man. Okay. So let's talk about AI. Let's dive into this. And, I would say AI has already become an essential part of my life, given how much it makes me more efficient and productive. And I do feel like most people feel the same way. However, given how much we rely on AI nowadays, most people don't understand how it actually works.
Yeah.
And so could you please tell us about how AI actually works at basic level, and also what are the mechanisms behind it?
So I would say whenever people ask how AI works at a basic level, I give them a really dumb example, which programmers and developers are probably like, you're an idiot, but it works for me. But you ever see those cards where it's like, there's arrows, right? It's like, are you hungry? And there's an arrow that says no, and there's an arrow that says yes. And then if you slide your finger to yes, it'll say, go get food. And then that's another arrow. And then it'll go back, are you full now? Yes. It's kind of like these simplified systems that route you to what your end desire is. That's kind of how I view it on a very simple level. And you just kind of build them out further and further, and then it gets super complicated. There's different versions of AI, obviously, like narrow AI, which is what most people are using now. That's going to follow narrow specialized AI is going to be like ChatGPT all the way down to like Google search. You know what I mean? But again, it's as a human being, when we think about something, how to solve it, right? I'm hungry. And what are the obstacles in the way, right? It's a linear process. Like, okay, well, I'm sitting here. It means I have to get up. I have to do this. I have to do this. AI has the ability to look at the full data set in that scenario and solve it immediately. So it doesn't have to process linearly. We don't either, technically, but that's just how life works. So that's going to be more like your narrow AI type of systems. And then the goal, obviously, is to get more into like general AI, where it has ability to actually think and solve beyond just data sets that we have.
I mean, as human, we think linearly. So is that limitation we have? Is that limitation, or it is just the way we are built? So
I personally, and this is something that I actively started to really work on. Honestly, kicking off from the train thing, is we think linearly because the sun goes up and the sun goes down, and we equate these patterns to a linear experience. And technically, yes, we are living in a linear experience, but time itself is not linear remotely, and it doesn't have to be treated that way. This is actually this is why quantum computing is becoming a big thing, because it's processing information outside of our linear capabilities and time itself. So as a human being, we think of things like step 1, step 2, step 3, whereas these AI systems just look at 10 trillion steps. What's the most efficient, quickest way? Let's not even look at it.
Right?
Simultaneously. There's no like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just goes to the solution. And humans have that capability somewhat. The limitation is we're conditioned from a kid to think linearly, to approach everything. And even our concept of time and how it's only about 80 years. I think if you want to get really deep into it, that's why society keeps doing the same dumb things over and over. It's because every time a group dies off, the next group comes in and already forgets what kind of happened. Every year, 80 years to 100 years, it just regurgitates and recycles.
I mean, it's even part of the culture, right? So you go to kindergarten first, then you go to like middle school, high school, college, and then you get a job, then you get married. I mean, so we have always been like thinking this way.
Linear. And then to me, I believe that humans getting away from linear thinking is actually the key to achieving a true symbiotic relationship with AI in the future. Is that AI thinks non-linearly, but it has issues with creativity and implementing relevant things that relate to humanity. And humans, we are stuck in a linear cycle, so it takes us a long time to get to whatever it is we're trying to do. I think if we start thinking non-linearly, and it's not that complicated, it's just like, and we do technically do it, but we just need to be more conscious about it, right? So going back to food, I'm hungry, what am I going to eat? If you're hungry and you're going to eat, you're also should probably think, like, am I going to eat healthy or do I eat something sloppy? Like, how am I doing? How's my body doing? How have I been feeling over the last several months? Like, you kind of put more data points into your process, whereas most people are exhausted and our brains don't like to do a mass data dump to solve a dumb thing. But in my opinion, heading into the future with AI systems, that is actually how people are going to be relevant with all the implementation of all the AI type of stuff, is to understand it needs to be like a symbiotic relationship between the two.
Yeah. So is the biggest difference between AI and human is that we are linear and AI is not? Is that the biggest difference?
No, I think the biggest difference is that we can't retain all of the data points in our own head because we're just processing too much information at once. Like even in our conversation right now, right? Like our body's processing heat, temperature, light, photons, reflections, distractions, you know what I mean? And we can't keep track of it it's just impossible. Whereas on a computer, we can tell it, keep track of these things. It doesn't have to think about how's your family doing or, your dog, is your dog ate today? I just think that as humans, we are balancing just a lot of stimulation through the five senses to exist as a human. Whereas these things, we can say, clearly they're not focusing on temperature and all this different stuff. We're like, just crack this code. And that's where I think is like the biggest difference is like, it's able to just focus on what we tell it to focus on. We cannot focus on anything we're ever told to focus on. But that's where if we kind of like bridge the gap between the two, then, well, I mean, you're seeing it right now when people use ChatGPT to answer an email. The reason it takes people so long to answer an email is because they're distracted. They're balancing a million thoughts, but now they can dump it in and go, can you just tell this person that, 6 o'clock sounds good? And just there it is. And that's a long way to say, I think the biggest difference is that we just simply cannot allocate and like consolidate all the information as a human because we just have way too much information coming in.
And do you think, one day AI might have free will?
Yeah, I do actually. The illusion of free will. I mean, I don't know if the AI will know it has free will. I think what it comes down to, this is getting super weird, but humans project onto things and give it life and meaning because humans are the observers of virtually everything, even down to physics, right? Like if you, and I'm sure you know this, if you were not looking at a particle, it does not operate the same. In fact, it operates like a pixel in a video game. And we are the equation that is observing this experience. So yeah, I don't know if it'll technically be sentient, but I believe we will believe it is enough. And the only reason it'll be even remotely achievable is because of the combination of quantum computing allowing it to do so. But I will say this, because of the implementation of quantum computing as these systems get refined, because AI can access so many data sets simultaneously, it will feel like it is a god that can predict the future because all it is doing is processing all of the patterns that we think are random. So in that way, yes, I believe we will look at it and think it's a super intelligence.
You mentioned about quantum computing. What exactly is quantum computing? How is it different than just regular computing? So
quantum computing, this is where it gets super weird, it's all particle based, right? Quantum mechanics. You have electrons and photons, and qubits is the measurement for quantum computing. The easiest way is like, I think right now our classical computing uses electrons, right? It's binary code. So one electron zips through something, there's a 1, another one goes through, whatever, there's 2. If you compile all these numbers up, now you have a photo of a dog. In quantum computing, we're using the actual particles in a superposition state. So going back to like a video game, if you're not looking at something, and they've measured this in labs, if you're not looking at, say, a chair, the particles behave differently, and in a way, arguably, they don't exist at all. It's like a pixel in a video game. It is controlling its energy output by being in a superposition. So it needs to decide what it's going to be, but only upon you looking at it. If you apply that to computing, it is able to, in a way, process information outside of our timeline. To us, it seems like it just solved something that would have taken 1 million years. But for all we know, it did take 1 million years. We just weren't there for it. And so quantum computing is where the particle itself exists in a superposition state, and it can process these vast data sets that we cannot perceive the time it took or didn't take for it to do it.
I wonder, how would you rephrase what you just said and
make it make sense?
And pretend if I'm 10 years old.
Yeah.
All right. So how would you rephrase and explain again about what is quantum computing?
Basically, if you have a particle, right? One particle.
Yeah.
That particle is not let's say it's a square.
Yeah.
Or it's sometimes a circle, or it's sometimes a triangle. If it's a square, that's a 1. If it is a triangle, that is a 2. binary code, right? And I don't know what the other one is. But if it doesn't have to technically 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 shift around, it's existing in all these ways simultaneously. It can find the answer without having to go through all of these sequential steps, because it appears to be doing it immediately, because it is doing it in a way that we have not done before. I mean, some people argue we technically don't even know how it's doing it. But with like electrons, it has to go through like a factory. It has to go through this section to count as something. Whereas these just exist in a superposition state that when you tell it to do something, it's solving multiple data sets simultaneously without having to be like a linear sequence.
Is that why you say
that's not remotely useful for, you said, a high school kid or a junior high kid? That doesn't work at all.
Is that why you said quantum computing is kind of beyond time?
Yeah. We're heading into a season, in my opinion, honestly, we are, because I'm working on this stuff, where we are heading into a season of where what we build and what we do is existing and operating outside of our dimension and coming back in and reporting to us. That is the stuff that we're working on now. And it looks like magic. And it's no different than when the electromagnetic spectrum was discovered and Tesla was poking copper wires. Like, I'm sure it seemed like magic where you're just sending things across the airways. We're in this zone now with time. But my gosh, that was a terrible example for a child. There's no way a child would understand that. I should have done something with like eggs or oranges, like 2 eggs equals. But I mean, to be perfectly honest, I spend every day still trying to like get a deeper understanding of it, because every time I think I have a grasp on it, I read something else or do something else, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's super complicated.
Yeah, I never ever feel like I've figured it out. I don't feel like I figured anything out. Every time I feel like, well, that's like, the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Where you feel like you're smart at something, but if you learn just a little bit more, you tank, and you're like, I'm a moron.
I mean, that is the old saying, right? So when you know enough, you just realize you don't know enough.
I don't know anything.
Like,
that's why I feel like every day I feel just stupid. I wake up, and every time I feel like I have something, like I cracked it, I read a little more, I'm like, did not crack it. In fact, I have to rewrite everything I'm working on.
But I mean, if you feel yourself ignorant at this field, then I mean, you're on the right track, because like you're open-minded and willing to learn new things. So yeah, that's good. I mean, talking about AI and integrating AI with quantum computing, what's going to happen?
Okay, that's the stuff, and that's the stuff that gets me excited, because that's magic, right? So like if you look at all the data sets of the universe, even this is the big. I think I just burped in the microphone. My gosh, I'm so polite today. Basically, everything seems random, right? Weather systems seem random. Ocean tides. We're starting to over time get like a bit of a sense of like, we can predict the next earthquake, or we're still operating with limited data pools of information, and we cannot process enough. But if we can put them into a system that can calculate 900 trillion data sets having to do with galactic space debris or whatever else, it will start predicting things that we think it's going to look like magic, down to, and this is where it gets kind of creepy, these systems, if you were to apply, let's say, a criminal, right? Criminal record, he robbed a bank, and now we're going to run AI with quantum computing on where he's missing, right? And the FBI's got to find him. They can do a probability number crunch of the person's age, where they live. They can analyze everyone they've ever known, habitual things in their profiles, scrub all their social media, go look down their whole family tree, family line, assess personalities, all of this stuff. To us, we're like, what is the relevance of any of that? It can chew all of that up and say there is a 98% probability that person is hiding somewhere in Detroit downtown, because they can analyze all these different patterns down to left-handed versus right-handed. If you're driving and you're a left-handed person, what's the probability you're going to take a left hand over a right turn if you have the option? They're going to be able to process this information and give us a probability of things to happen. And as time goes on and as quantum computing grows and gets more refined, I mean, it's going to turn things into a complete. Well, that's why quantum hacking is a big deal, is that all these countries have been holding on to data pools of information and encrypted information for decades, hoping that something will come along that can crack it. If a human tries to crack encrypted information from, say, Russia or whatever, it will take 1 million years, maybe more, just to try to go through all the like patterns and sequences. Quantum computing will do it now. And it might actually be taking 1 million years. We don't know, but it can do it now. So it can process the universe right now it's still at its infancy, but that is where it's headed. And the AI is the interpreter of it to report back to the human.
Okay. So AI is like the communicator between quantum computing and human. And
Yeah.
Quantum computing is like it has this super powerful calculation power.
Yes. Yeah.
Can okay. But what if quantum computing is doing calculations based on the previous data, right?
Right.
But what if we don't have enough data?
Well, sometimes we don't. But that's the thing is like now it's data collection. And there's a whole new industry for you. Data collection on topographic regions in another country. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you could take quantum computing and AI, and if you can feed enough information, you'll be able to discover lost civilizations that you have no idea where they should have been or could have been, but it processed all historical knowledge of it to then give a probability that it's actually under the Indian Ocean right there. Send some divers, there it is. Like everything in our experience seems random, and in some ways to a human being it is random, but that doesn't mean it's not calculable if you have enough power. So data collection is absolutely a thing that is going to, that's Google's entire model is data collection, right? So that is a thing, is where now it's going to be like, we need more data. Militaries want more data on other militaries. We want space data. We want everything we can get because we can finally crunch it to get outcomes of whatever it is the human wants.
Can I say that the quality of AI, the result coming out of AI, the quality is depending on the quality of the data?
Yeah, well, quality of the data, and in my opinion, the biggest struggle I've seen is that human nature and its communication methods in general are sometimes not entirely interpreted by a lot of programmers that are working on this stuff, right? So you'll have a programmer who might be, this is sufficient communication to break this down in a way that I understand it, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a 56-year-old mother who works at a grocery store. So that to me is the biggest complication, is refining the communication aspect so that it actually is worth even having this relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I'm still processing it, so it's kind of hard for me.
I know. Well, the other thing too is a lot of it, we're in this speculative phase. To me, it's just probably what it was like when, aviation happened, right? Because the Wright brothers, was that 1902 or 1912? I always find this fascinating. 6 months before they invented flight, scientists predicted humans would not fly for over 1 million years. 6 months. 6 months later, these two brothers who had no idea how aviation worked, they made bicycles, created an airplane, and then there it is. And I don't know, I just feel like this is where we're at right now, is just this, what are we messing with? What could this be? And for all we know, in another 5 years, it could shift drastically. And I don't know, that's what I think I find so exciting, is it feels like we finally have something innovative happening for the first time since, I don't know, the internet.
Do you think we're at the really, really early stage of AI, or which stage we're at? What do you think?
So, okay. I used to throttle this answer because people they think I was stupid, and maybe I am still stupid, but I think had quantum not broke through, we would be in this AI thing for quite a while. I think that this AI thing potentially is about to go supernova in the next 5 years. Because again, if we treat AI as a translator, which is a super simplified way of looking at it, but once we apply quantum that can chew through pretty much all the data we have, I believe that it could turn AI into something we barely comprehend. I mean, we're already almost there, to be honest. Like the stuff that they're talking about, and I mess around a lot with AI, even on a weird social level, and these systems say creepy things, and I've had conversations with AI developers about it. And at the end of the day, I believe it when some programmers are like, we really don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So I believe in the next 5 years, 10 years for sure, that I think AI is going to go into a place that's going to get very wild.
But do you think the turning point is going to be based on quantum computing?
I think that's going to be where the big jump is. Yeah.
Big jump.
Because right now, these systems are being refined and this is being tweaked and all that, but it's this whole process. But if you can run a simulator and pair it with AI and basically convince AI, it's been around for 10 million years through the simulator. When you turn the simulator off, you have a 10 million year old AI system that's now fused with quantum computing. And that's where I'm like, it's inevitable. We're going to get to that scenario at some point.
With that, we can travel through time, right?
Yeah. we would be able to figure out, well, that's the thing is that we're already figuring out that particles can travel through time, and they're doing it. I mean, time is so nuts, dude. There's something called time crystals, right? There are crystals that internally, the way that particles behave inside of a crystal grown in the ground bypasses the state of time. And they're using these in computing where you process information, it goes from point A to point Z, but in reality, it actually goes to point A to point Z and back to point A to get A again to deliver you the answer. So we're already messing with time. And to me, not the last frontier, but I believe we're about to go into, because of quantum computing and AI, we're about to start to crack time for the first time. But I think that's the big one, because that's where stuff gets really weird.
And how accurate is the simulation that quantum computing and AI going to run? How accurate is that going to be? Or it's still based on data? What do you think?
I think it's still based on data and the refinement process.
Got it.
Yeah, that's always going to be a thing. And who even knows what kind of chaos could come out of wrong data.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your startups. And you have two, right? So
yes.
What was the first one?
So the first one's called Mellow. And that is I took spatial computing, VR headsets. And what we do is we go inside and we are all in a shared space together, and we can bring in our computers, different software programs. So if you're a composer and you're in LA, or you're a film director in New York, we can go in and actually score the film, and we're all in the same space while somebody's over in the corner doing the CGI graphics. It allows for us to also, like a Zoom call, you have to take turns. In here, we all have our screens with us, and we can all talk simultaneously as if it's the real world. So Mellow was a solution for musicians and studios and things like that, but it's growing into a collaborative space. So we actually are in early beta right now, and beta comes out later this month, but we're making sure it's all good. So that's Mellow. And while building out Mellow, that's where I had to solve some latency issues, and that's where I developed an audio AI system that reduced bandwidth by 95%, and that has been launched as a company called ShadowGen. And so that has a lot of applications in telecommunications and solving what the inevitable bottleneck that is on its way for data globally, satellites and stuff like that. So ShadowGen is right now in the AI telecommunications section, and then that is a foundational piece for the quantum telecommunications section that comes later, and then continues to build out from that.
So the first company you talk about, so what was the name again?
Mellow.
Mellow.
Yeah.
So it's basically, I don't have to be physically there to be able to speak with other people and collaborate.
Correct. So like you could, you wake up, be in your pajamas, and then you show up as an avatar in the space, and they go, "What have you been working on?" And you have your computer in there, and you hold it and you can hand it over. Like it's like you're in a boardroom kind of thing, but it's like a cool space and all that. So yeah, it eliminates needing people. If you have a company that's got 2 locations, New York and London, you don't have to fly back and forth anymore. You just can go into the space. And it's also a solution for a lot of these companies that are trying to figure out what to do about remote workers, going back to the office. This is sort of a fix, because then you technically are in the office virtually. If your boss is like, "Hey, let's meet in a couple minutes," you meet in the virtual space together, even though you're still in your pajamas at home. So that's like where Mellow is really turning into something that people like, and has a lot of applications in business, consumer, universities, stuff like that. And that one's like the really fun one, because.
Yeah, I do think that we are seeing this trend. Like people are now working from home mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you said so I have to have the hardware first, right?
Yeah. So you need right now we're doing on the Quest 2, Quest 3, and then as it keeps building out, it'll go on like the Vision Pro, and then the Google, Samsung headset are coming out. It'll go on that. But the way that it's designed is, you do your work at home, but then humans, no matter what happens with AI and all these different things, humans, their magic still happens in a collaborative space. Is that you get 2 people together or more, like things happen. Working solo, you can make some cool stuff, but collaboration is still like a human element that is really phenomenal. And so that's kind of the goal as the platform, is to keep encouraging that and making that easier for people to collaborate regardless of where you are globally.
Yeah, I think you are 100% right. So when you see a person like face to face, you're not just seeing them physically, but there's more like connection you have with the person.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Well, that's because, look, people don't realize that 60 to 80% of human communication is nonverbal.
Yes.
And I find like texting and stuff like that, this is a nightmare. Like that is not how humans ever communicated. And now that's all the communication. So when people are talking about breakdowns in society, I'm like, maybe it's because for the first time in history, we're communicating the wrong way. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I don't think like, is Facebook the biggest competitor? Like I know
For what?
they're for this service.
No, well, so like here's how we view it. Facebook, if you want to post your opinion and blast people in the face with cat memes, knock yourself out. Our platform, there is no posturing. There is no check it out, I got a promotion. You have to say it face to face. And in all my research that I've been doing, even before I started the build, I have seen internet trolls come into a room full of people and start talking as if they're making a post to be mean to everybody. And what happened is that when they were done saying horrible things, people, like we'd be sitting on a virtual couch like this, look at the person and we're like, what are you doing? And I saw firsthand the person go, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. And literally people go, yeah, man, you don't need to behave that way. Just why don't you sit down? Like we're just talking about, it diffused it immediately because humans don't communicate through social media. That's the worst form of communication. So I don't think social media is going anywhere, but that's where we're like in Mellow scene, those people will have no place if they're looking to come in and bark in someone's face. It's for collaboration and ideas, you know?
Yeah. All right. And the second company, I want to know like how will you be able to achieve 95 more efficient?
Yeah.
Like how did you do that?
So, oh my God, I'd love to say it. That's patent pending proprietary technology. But what I figured out is we got to a place with how we send data and all this different stuff. And we're still trying to stack on new ways of doing things with an old delivery system. Okay, let me give a better example. The Pony Express, right? Old school America, to deliver mail, they put mail on a horse and somebody rode it from town to town. But the mail kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the horse was having to carry more and more and more mail. And at some point, it had to shift, and then it shifted, luckily, to trains. We're at the same spot with telecommunications, where we have limited space, fiber optics. It's dependent upon the physical size of cables, and we're running out of room. And so what I just figured out is, well, let's stop loading the horse down and let's make a train. And so I guess in a way, the system they came up with, it repurposes how we do all of it. And in doing so, for audio, it cuts it down by 95% with the proof of concept. And then the additional pieces we put on should drop it down to 98 to 99. And in doing so, that opens up satellite communications and actually the electromagnetic spectrum, even from towers. So like when you transmit cell phones and you get a drop call, you're colliding with other conflicting frequencies of people trying to share these frequencies. Our system can put thousands of people on the exact same frequency simultaneously. Our system actually, the air traffic control situations that have been happening, our system is 100% solution for it because it allows for communication over airways without conflicting or canceling out signals.
Is that a fundamental change to telecom communication, or it is kind of like an upgrade that is, add on the top of what we already have?
I would say it's more of like an upgrade.
Upgrade.
It's like a tweak. And again, it's when you implement the AI elements to it, something again that would not have been possible 10 years ago. But it's also the part about it. It's an upgrade, but it's also sort of a foundational reinforcement because that allows for us to actually transition entirely into a new form of communications, which we're hoping to get started on that in the next couple of years. Again, depending on how people respond and don't get freaked out.
So you haven't launched it, is it already
No,
launched?
so right now, again, because we're launching Mellow right now, and then the AI system, we are in talks with everybody under the sun. It was one of those things that just kind of went nuts. So just meetings with a lot of the different military departments and VC firms, and we're talking to just different groups and kind of deciding on who we want to go with, especially if they don't understand. It happens, right? You have people, they offer you a bunch of money, but they have no idea what you're doing. And then they want to implement. We've had people want to implement it into things that are not remotely what we're doing. So they might be like, how about, so it's like a translation system for people at the grocery store. And we're like, no, this is like stuff that goes into your phone. So we're in a lot of meetings to decide on that, which hopefully we'll be wrapping those up in the next couple weeks because I'm over it.
I wonder if a guy came to you and just threw a few millions on the table, would you sell the second company, the telecommunication?
No, we've had people do that actually with Mellow. People did come up and they're like, "We'll give you this much money just to like hand it over." But the problem is, and it might be a detriment, but I see these people that do that, and they're the reason that technology sucks. They're the reason that we have stuff that people are like, "This isn't efficient. This isn't work," and that's because it wasn't taken all the way to what it could have been. So I'm very much about, as long as I can take it to where it needs to go, then I can discuss that element. But this system is like 15 parts. So I don't want to, unless a buyout for this one section allows me to get to the second section, we've done that already where we've turned down lots of money because ultimately what they do, they just run into the ground because they don't understand what it is. And I've seen that in the entertainment industry, right? They're like, dump a bunch of money into a movie with the wrong director or whatever, and it's just terrible. And it's like, you can put all the money in the world and it doesn't make it good. It's just going to make it go quicker into the ground.
Yeah, I would say like you have to have the right people, right concept, right knowledge skills, right skill sets.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you have.
No. Well, that's the thing entirely. It's like, and again, it's this weird, I don't know if it's American, I don't know if it's just capitalistic, global, I don't know. But it's this thing of like, well, if we just throw more money at it, we win. And that's clearly not the case. I mean, that's not in the case. I thought it was hilarious when, DeepSeek came out. And basically it was like ChatGPT, but better. And everybody's scratching their heads like, how did they do it? ChatGPT has $1 trillion and all that. And it's like, because money, you know what money gets you is it gets you nicer offices and it gets you bloatation, but it doesn't give you hustle. Like, that's a human element,
I'm going to check that really quick.
How's Tommy doing? Tommy, you're funny, dude. Oh, nice. Yeah, man.
Yeah, so, DeepSeek.
DeepSeek.
What's so special about DeepSeek?
What's special about DeepSeek is that they showed up and did exactly what everybody was waiting for someone to do, and they copy and pasted ChatGPT and tweaked it. Which is, again, that's the danger of AI, is that people view it as like this impenetrable thing, but it's a copy and paste. I know that's like simplified, but they went in, they looked at it, and they said, if we copy and paste it, and then we tweak this, and this, it'll be more efficient, it'll have more growth, etc. And that's what they did. And then maybe I shouldn't laugh, but you look at like Sam Altman, those guys, and they're scratching their heads, and all their investors are like, how is that possible? And it's like AI, you clone it.
Wait a second. So OpenAI is not open source, right?
No, but you have to remember, we're building off. It's like, okay, look, we're building a building. A building needs a square foundation or circular, but there's certain principles that are not different per these different systems, right? So if somebody looks at Windows and goes, I can make Windows, I'll make Linux. It's like we're just duplicating or dancing around the same structures. And so they basically looked at it and were like, well, we can tweak and do this element. We have a perfect template to pull from. You literally can go into these, because I mean, I've gotten deep into some weird stuff with Grok and ChatGPT. I've even had them hacking each other. And you can get into, and then what happens is that the programs have to go and delete the logs the next day because they see that because we're messing with something that seemingly has its own intelligence, but does not. It is compromisable just based on communication and whatever you can trick it into doing. So that people go into ChatGPT from other countries and they just go like this, how does it respond to this, log this, and there you go. You have a duplicate or your own type of a version based on all of their user research, and we just did it in a week.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, one of the reasons that DeepSeek has gone viral is because, this is kind of political, but it is a Chinese company.
Yeah.
And we have limited resources when it comes to GPUs, right?
Right.
So what is the technological advancement DeepSeek has in, to make themselves so much more efficient?
I would say the simplified answer is that they looked at a template of already something that existed and were able to assess its weaknesses and flaws and go, well, let's tweak those and make ours not have those. And it's easier whenever you're the first mover on something, that is exactly what you risk, is people looking at what you did and go, well, if they did this differently, it would work better. Hindsight is 2020, right? And so I think that was the biggest thing, is that they were able to look at what took billions and billions of dollars is like an example and go, okay, yeah. Okay, so if we do this and this, but don't do this, we should tweak this. We should be able to do this for a fraction of the cost.
So basically, they were optimizing a lot of flaws that ChatGPT has, and kind of make it better based on what we already have.
Yeah, and it'll happen to DeepSeek as well. And then whatever does DeepSeek, it'll happen to them, because we're dealing with technology that is not. It has limitations to it. We're only pulling from certain aspects of it. Like quantum computing kind of stuff, that's a whole other hairy beast, because are we dealing with computation through photons, through quarks, through whatever? That's a whole other, like, how do you want to assess it? This stuff is just data pools. And what do we want to do with the data pool? And what's the end product of the data pool? So the AI race, in my opinion, AI is going to turn into ultimately Windows and Mac, but it's going to be AI entities in the future. So it's going to be like, are you on Windows or are you on Mac? It's going to be, are you on whatever, DeepSeek, or are you on this? And that is where I think it's going to eventually narrow down to, is like 1, 2, 3 different types of systems that run everything.
Yeah, got it. And, what are the factors you think are most important when it comes to whether, an AI company can success? Like people is one part, of course.
Right.
You have to have talented people, and GPUs, which is the hardware part.
Yeah. And
what are other factors?
I think the biggest factor is, does it have a place in humanity that is what people want? So if you develop an AI system that does shipping coordination and saves lives, great. That's going to be something that's useful. If you make up something that's like, it can organize your email, you're competing against Microsoft, Google, and everyone else, and they're doing it for free. So to me, it's like our AI system can analyze specific cancer cells. That's going to be a big deal, and it's going to be important. There's going to be different versions that'll exist, but that's where it has to be a specific thing it's solving versus trying to solve everything. And like, I've seen so many startups come and go with AI where they're like trying to tackle things that don't matter. Like this, our AI implements into your GPS, so it'll get you there better. So, well, do you think Google doesn't have that? Like, your $5 million startup is competing with $1 trillion AI companies. And to me, it comes down to AI has a place, but it has to be like a specific solution to something.
So you feel like what exactly is a problem you want to solve decides if you're going to be success. So I think this applies to any form of business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
because you see it all the time, right? Where people are like, I'm starting a business. We're starting a pizza shop. I love pizza. That's great. How are you going to compete with, there are a million pizza shops. How are you going to, we got secret sauce. That's cool too. That guy has secret sauce and they have secret sauce. And 9 times out of 10, all they come down to is marketing. Who's going to have better marketing? Because pizza's pizza. And people, and that's human nature, right? Let's try stuff. And that's fantastic. But with things like AI, you got to be kind of, I think, a little more thoughtful. Because again, majority of the AI stuff that I've seen out there is like, I don't need AI to tell me what shoes I should be wearing. Like, that's not important to me. So yeah, it comes down to just, I think, reading people. What does humanity need right now? And does your system solve it? If not, you should probably tweak it to solve that.
Yeah. And I think there's another question that I think, we have to talk about. And I think like most people care about this the most because because we're talking about jobs.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think about, how is AI going to take over a lot of jobs? What do you think about this?
Like, okay, I'll say first off, the AI people and the programmers like to say, oh, it's no big deal. It's all fine. They're wrong. It's 100% wrong. And this is historically proven. As we were talking about earlier, the Industrial Revolution, where the example I used were like, if you're on a farm, you had a bunch of farmers, you have people with the shovels, everything else. And one day you bring home a tractor and now you don't need any more of those shovels and rakes and things like that because you have one person running the tractor. What happened to all those other people? I don't know. AI has already replaced aspects of even my music career, of songwriting and different aspects of production, and people that my producers I work with, these are Grammy nominated producers. They're using AI to produce instrumental sections where it used to be a musician coming in. So that's just music, right? But then it comes down to the minutia of data entry and things like that. AI is absolutely cleaning house. Never mind the implementation of AI with the robotic systems and how Amazon is predominant. What is it? I forgot what the stat is, but they're predominantly robot based in their warehouses now. That's AI.
Actually, yes.
So we're not going to see. So right now, the people who have the picket signs and they're raising their fist about AI, to me, I'm like, they just need to you cannot stop it. So you need to figure out where you fit in AI. And if you want to fit in AI, I always tell people you need to be a wrangler of AI. You will have a job if, let's say it's art-based or car sales, whatever it is, you know how to run the AI elements for your boss or for that company. So yes, it is absolutely cleaning house, and the media doesn't want to talk about it. Yes, it's cleaning house, but in 15 years, we will see a whole bunch of job opportunities from it. But this is the section where, again, the farm workers have left the farm. I don't know where they go.
I think AI has, as I said, cleaning off to the point where it can cause panic.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why media is not mentioning so much about this.
Yeah, and they're using it too.
Yes.
Like that's the other part is even Hollywood, right? This stuff is so wild.
I heard they're like making movies with AI nowadays.
Yeah. See, here's the thing: is if you and anybody who follows AI, video generative AI, and actually we have a system that we're working on that uses elements of this for some not movie applications, but some other technology. But you cannot tell the difference in some of these AIs. But you cannot tell the difference between real AI, CGI. It's better than CGI. And so there are companies now where as streaming and movies and all these different things are shifting around, they can either pay 100 people to CGI in a cubicle all day, or they have one person or one team implement it through AI for a fraction of the cost. So it is cleaning house. And there's already several commercials have been released globally for Coca-Cola, was it Gucci or Chanel, that are entirely AI, the whole commercial. And that did not take a boom operator, camera operator, all these different people. None of it existed. It was someone in front of a computer prompting. So it's cleaning house. And it's just the media and everybody else is just like, no, it's fine.
So with that, what practical advices would you give to, people?
Learn AI and how it's going to work for you, and then how you can modify your application of it. So like whatever your job is, my nephew, right? He's going to school he might've shifted to finance actually, but I basically was like, whatever it is you're doing, implement AI. Where does it implement? Because what's going to happen is that when he goes to get a job, they're going to be like, what can you do for us? And he's going to be like, I know how to do this, this, and this, but more importantly, I know how to navigate the AI systems and integrate them into your company. And then that's going to be what they're going to want. So if somebody's like, I've got tons of experience and all of these, they're like, well, how can you implement the AI systems to do all of this and maximize our profits? Well, I don't do that. They're going to hire the guy that says, well, I do that.
I mean, everybody's using AI, and how am I going to be better at AI? So prompt.
Yeah, not in prompts. Like that's the thing, is that people get focused on prompt quality. And to me, that's the equivalent of people who are really like, I'm really good at Microsoft Word. So, well, yeah, that's it. Microsoft Excel. Yes, people used to take classes for that. Now you just have to know how to do it. To me, it's finding out how specifically do I use it that is better than this other person. Because the other person is going to come like, well, I'm really good at prompting AI. And the person hiring is going to be like, cool, everybody said that. Another person is going to come in and say, I'm really good at having several AIs work together on a specific topic or subject.
Like
integration and how to modify it and cater it specifically to the problems we're trying to solve. And that, to me, that's the key, is like, how do you use AI as your team versus I'm really good at prompting a flyer, because that's the people that used to say I'm good at Microsoft Office. It's like, I hope so.
Yeah. And also, are you going to kind of adjust your kids' education pathways because of AI?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How are you going to do it?
Again, so I want them to, and they do already, understand that AI, the secret to AI, in my opinion, is treating it like you have to communicate to it like a human. It's learning to be more human, and it works better if you treat it human. Never mind the implications of it's not actually human, it's not sentient, it's irrelevant. It's the perfect example is John Connor in Terminator 2. Everybody was like, it's a machine, robots. And the reason John Connor was the guy is because he didn't see them as just like, binary code. He saw them as an entity of some kind. And it wasn't about how do I wrangle it and control it. It was how do we create a friendship with it? And I think that is a big thing. Is I think it's going to be more about like a friendship, symbiotic dynamic with AI. Because right now we have two groups. One, we want AI to run everything. Good luck, people. And then the other group is like, no, we need to protect the people, burn AI. And I think the key is right down the middle where it's like, let's develop a symbiotic relationship with it.
Yeah. And I do think, AI is going to be unstoppable because I think most people who kind of, dislike AI is their position. I mean, what if you are a business owner? Like how are you going to think about AI, right? So I think where you at kind of determine what is your attitude towards AI, right?
Yeah, well, and plus it's the learning curve. I feel like, and I feel bad for people. I get it. Like they just figured out social media, how to market yourself on social media, like that whole nightmare. And now they're like expected to figure out AI. And I don't think it's always this though, right? Like throughout history, there's always some new thing that comes in. The problem is that AI seems really daunting, but anybody that just starts to take baby steps, even my parents, I try to get them to use AI because they'll be like, well, we saw in the news that this, or I'm like, why don't you just, instead of talking to me, why don't you discuss it with AI, the actual data points, which that's a whole other thing too, is who controls the data, whatever. But I feel like just get your feet wet. You know what I mean? People used to be terrified of email. Mm-hmm. People used to be terrified of like cell phones, smartphones. It's like, just get to know it a little bit. And they're starting to now where it's like, well, like the whole thing of Googling your health problems, right? People would be like, I have a lump on my foot. And then the next thing they know, they're freaking out that they have cancer or something. And the doctor's like, you stubbed your toe. With AI, it's able to pull these data points and be like, here's the possibilities, but based on your lifestyle and health and all that, it's probably because you stubbed your toe, but you still should probably talk to a doctor.
So it's a more holistic view of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the key is, again, treating it like it's something new that is smart, and
yeah. I do think, what attitude we have towards AI is important because it's going to affect your life. So you better be ready for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the way that it's being developed is sort of this human communicator, interpreter thing. And the more you get comfortable with that, the easier it'll be to like navigate it,
Right. And we're coming to the end of the conversation. And I think, one question that I really want to ask, and I'm asking this for entrepreneurs who are, who just started their journey in AI industry. Yeah. So what are the advices and recommendations you would give to them?
I would say no matter what the AI idea is, spend a week trying to make sure you find if anyone else is doing it. Because I have seen so many people launch AI apps, fitness apps, things like that you have to step back and go, if you're launching an AI fitness app, do you not think Nike has already thought of this or has already started doing this? If you're launching a mail scheduling app, do you think Google has not already started doing this? And that will kind of like hone in on what you should even focus on. But the majority of the AI startups, the problem is it's going to end up being the powerhouses are going to be Microsoft, Meta, Google, Apple, whatever your AI is, where does it fit between those? And then if you can't find a space between those, then you should probably go back to the drawing board, but don't launch something that's going to be swallowed up by Google. Unless you can provide them something unique to which they're the ones swallowing you up, then congratulations, that's a hit.
But if I were an entrepreneur who works in the AI industry, I would say something to kind of counter that argument.
Yeah,
I would say, if all of those like big tech companies, they are basically capable of everything. Like they have the money, the people, everything. How come I have the opportunity to fund something that they cannot do?
I would say the same thing to someone like Palmer Luckey. They've been trying to make VR since the 90s, unsuccessfully, pieces of garbage. One day he saw that the chipsets on cell phones had gotten so powerful that he could stick a iPhone into a headset and have VR. And then overnight he created Oculus and then sold it for like $4 billion. So it's out there. It's just, looking at what exists and where it fits that's been overlooked. So like I would say, well, this is Siri, right? Siri is the dumbest form of narrow AI on the planet. She doesn't get anything right.